Hi everybody. For dinner tonight, I've really been craving steak tartare, and I thought a really good accompaniment for steak tartare would be roasted garlic pate choux. It's something pretty similar I had to a restaurant called Ella in Sacramento. Pate choux basically is what they make eclair dough and puff pastry, or not puff pastry, sorry, cream puffs and such out of. Super easy to do. It's one of the most mystifying things because what it does is really cool. Pate choux means cabbage paste or cabbage paste. When you bake the little guys, they look like little cabbages. Anyways, the basic ratio is 1 cup of water, 1 stick of butter, 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of eggs. 1 cup of eggs works out to be about 4 eggs. Since I'm doing roasted garlic pate choux, what I did is I roasted some whole garlic cloves in a stick of butter with a little bit of oil to stop the butter from burning. And then I took those garlic cloves out and I poached them in water in order to infuse the garlic flavor into the water. I also threw in about a teaspoon of salt. So go ahead and turn up to high here. The procedure for making the stuff is you boil the water, sometimes milk, and the fat, in this case roasted garlic butter. You boil that, dump all the flour in, stir it up till it's pretty well cooked, and from there we go into the KitchenAid, which is right over here, and we're going to add the eggs one at a time until they're all beaten in and emulsified, and that's going to give us our dough, which generally you would use a piping bag to make either mounds in order to make cream puffs, or you could pipe into short strips or long strips even if you were making eclairs. The same dough is also used for the Paris Brest, which is a giant ring of pate choux, and it's meant to look like a bicycle. It's a pretty classic French thing in order to celebrate the bicycle race between Paris and Brest, which is apparently another town in France. Anyway, so I got my cup of flour here. I prefer to weigh everything. In this case, from my experience, I've found that 4.5 ounces is a pretty good measurement for flour. And then over here, I have my water and butter. Again, if you were to weigh it, it'd be 8 ounces of water, 4 ounces of butter. But like I said, the easiest way to remember is a cup of liquid, a stick of butter, a cup of eggs, and a cup of flour. So, and certainly if you wanted to make this sweet, you'd add sugar or honey or whatever. I've put fresh herbs in there before. Super versatile. Another thing it's used for is gnocchi à la Parisienne, which would be Parisian gnocchi. Pretty similar, I think, in texture to the potato gnocchi that we're all familiar with, but probably cheaper and less, take less time since you don't need to form the dough or bake potatoes or anything like that. So my water's boiling right now. I'm going to go ahead and crank my heat down to about 5 on my stove. Just dump all the flour in at once and really vigorously stir so it all comes together. I'm using a whisk, although I think once everything's in here, I'm going to switch over to my wooden spoon. It's really going to allow me to scrape the edges and get in there. Now, what you can't see, because I'm recording on the laptop, it's basically a kind of a soggy mass of dough. The more I stir this, the liquid's going to cook out, and I'm going to end up with a smooth, almost kind of a shiny ball of dough. They say once the batter or the dough starts pulling away from the sides of the pan as you stir it, then you're ready to go in the mixer. For such a small amount as this, you could do it by hand, but less work, and I think you get better incorporation if you use your mixer. So just pretty vigorously stir it for, I don't know, a minute or two maybe. You don't want it to stick and burn. You want everything to be evenly distributed. I'm going to go ahead and taste it. Make sure. Yeah, there's a good amount of salt in there. I don't think I'm going to have to, well, I'll add a little bit more. Salt I like to use is Diamond Crystal kosher salt. Just the way that it's shaped, the way it feels in my hand. It's what I've used at the restaurants I've worked at, so I'm more familiar with it than any other salt. And also, it weighs about equal to its volume. So a tablespoon of Diamond Crystal kosher salt is going to weigh about half an ounce, which is what the tablespoon of water would weigh, or even a tablespoon of sugar for that matter. But those are the only 3 things I know of that are as close in volume as they are in weight. While that's going, I know I said to stir the whole time, but rules are meant to be broken. I'm just going to crack my eggs in my bowl, and these are large eggs. I don't ever use medium or jumbo or extra large or anything like that, just because, like I said, in my experience, I've always used large eggs. They weigh about 2 ounces a piece. I would say the white is probably worth about 1 1/3 ounces, and the yolk is worth about 2/3 of an ounce. And again, that's an approximation. If I were to dump that in a measuring cup, which I will do, we'll see that it's just about a cup. It's just shy of a cup, a little more than 3/4, but that'll do. I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking right now. It's pretty smooth. Not at all like what I started with. Now we got the dough. Turn off the heat. Give a good scrape to get everything out of there. So as you can see there, you got your dough, and it's kind of nondescript looking. I agree. Get it in there, get it locked up. Before I start adding eggs, I like to let it run a little bit to cool it off, just to be certain that I'm not going to scramble my eggs as soon as I add them, because this mixer is obviously very hot. I mean, I can touch it, you'd probably burn your hand. In which case, you'd have to deal with it. Let that go for a minute. I have set up here my half sheet pan with a called a Pate on top of it, just a silicone baking sheet. It's going to make sure nothing sticks to the pan. It's also going to promote even heating. Since I don't have the pastry bag I was talking about earlier, I'm just going to grab a couple of spoons and I'll make little dumplings on here, and I'll get it in the oven. The oven is turned to 375 right now. I reckon baking them for about 30 minutes all day. I'll rotate them after 20. And generally what you would do is, after they're baked, you leave the oven door open and just kind of let them dry out on the inside, because that's how you would do it for profiteroles or cream puffs or whatever. But I want mine to be pretty moist, and I'm going to heat them up again later. So once the dough inside is cooked and the outsides are GBD, golden brown and delicious, I'm just going to remove them from the oven, and then later, as I'm ready to eat my tartare, I'll whack them in for a minute just to heat them up. This is considerably cooler now, I'm going to crank up the speed a little bit and just pour in my eggs one at a time. Pretty easily done to get one at a time. Looking at the bowl, I can see the glossiness of the eggs, and once that kind of dissipates, I'll go ahead and add the next one. And I don't know that you necessarily have to add one at a time. I understand that Michel Richard says you don't. I learned to dump them in one at a time, so that's how I do it. That one's incorporated. The third one's in now. Go ahead and add my last egg. Go ahead and take this opportunity to scrape down the sides of the bowl just to make sure everything gets mixed in the way I want it to, which is evenly. And I'll just give it a few more goes around with the paddle. I should have what I'm looking for. And after adding all those cold eggs, the temperature is considerably cooler than it was. Drop the bowl and run the beater around like that to kind of knock off most of the stuff that's sticking to it. Give the paddle a final scrape down because you really want to use as much of this as you can. You made the whole batch, you might as well use the whole batch. So, I don't know what you can tell, but this to me, from first person, is much smoother, and it's it looks like a dough. See it how it sticks like that? It's good. It means we properly developed the gluten. It's going to stretch and expand the way we want it to. Really don't want to make very big puffs because these things are going to get, and that's all the bigger you want to go. I'm using teaspoons. These things puff up quite a bit when they bake. That smaller one was, or that second one was quite a bit smaller, which is more along the lines that I had in mind. What I'm going to do when I'm done is get my finger wet and make an attempt to kind of knock down any of the pieces that are sticking up or whatever. It'll just be more aesthetically pleasing when they bake up. If you didn't want to take that step, it'd be fine, I think. But you run the risk of burning the little quips that are sticking off of it. Getting your finger wet just ensures that you're not going to have the dough stick to your finger. This really is something that's much easier with a piping bag. You get a more consistent product from it, but I don't care. I'm the only one eating it. Somebody out there sees this and wants me to make it for them, and they're good looking, between the ages of, I don't know, 20 and 34, preferably female. I'd be happy to chef up some pot of choux with you. We can make cream puffs together too. It's all good. Or gnocchi. A couple weeks ago I made pot of choux and used it as dumplings for chicken and dumplings. And rather than water and butter, I used chicken stock and schmaltz for the dumplings. Of course, schmaltz is just rendered chicken fat. Basically the same thing as lard, though it's made with chicken fat rather than pork. And certainly you could use duck fat or whatever if you're going to do like a foie gras mousse piped in to a profiterole. I would highly recommend using duck fat, or even rendered foie fat would be better. I've got a little bit of dough left here. See if I can sneak it in anywhere. It's going to be pretty tight. After I bake these, I'm sure that some of them will have joined together. If I sneak in one more. Right there. Move that first big one I made over. Put its buddy right next to it. This is just the cup I used to measure with. It's full of water, I figured. Not really. I'm into using the same dish over as many times as I can in order to reduce my workload of washing dishes. Although Johnny Dish is an avid dishwasher, I prefer to save as much time doing it as I can. Like I said, I love to wash dishes, but not that much. One thing I want to do on the show is kind of show a montage of me doing dishes, just to see how easy it really is to clean as you go. We'll focus on that as we get there. So here's, I don't know, 25, 24-ish. I don't know. You count them if you want. I'm going to go in the oven right now. 375 for 15-20 minutes. Set the timer. While that's going on, I'm going to do the dishes. I'll go ahead and pause. Oh, it was 17 minutes. Holy shit. Thank you.